හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Monday, the 19th of February 2024. Economic rights. Fourth stage of Bharat Lanka housing project launched. Indian envoy pledges India's commitment to support Tamils of Indian origin.
Commitment of India to continue our efforts to support the Indian origin Tamil community in Sri Lanka.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe assures economic and social rights to the estate community.
ආර්ථික හා සමාජීය අයිතිවාසිකම් අපිට ලබා දෙන්න.
Union demands. Special committee appointed to probe into health union demands and allowances deadlock. Expression of freedom. A country's growth and development suffers where the freedom of citizens is constricted, stresses the US Undersecretary of Public Diplomacy Elizabeth M. Allen.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9 with Indivari Amuata and Mahish Johnny. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. You're joining us this Monday on First at 9 with me, Indivari Amuata.
A very good evening, Indivari.
And Mahish Johnny.
You look
and we finally found a way to match our outfits.
Apparently. We went and brought stuff from the same store.
Yeah.
A lot of stories to bring to you tonight. As always, there are stories with regard to certain envoys visiting Sri Lanka, as you saw in the headlines, where the US, one of the US envoys are here on Sri Lanka, and they're talking about freedom of expression, which is very much vital to the media as well.
Yes, this is again pertaining to the Online Safety Act. The US has raised its concern on the freedom of expression, the rights of citizens, and how countries fail where its citizens are constricted. Again, there is also in our international news headlines, you just did see that the International Court of Justice has begun hearing cases pertaining to
groundbreaking court case because of legality of Israel's presence in the Gaza Strip, Palestine, is put to question. Also, there's some good news if you're going to visit Port City. Apparently, you can buy goods duty
free. That the shop has opened. So we have all that to cover tonight. Let's begin with your top story.
Indeed. The foundation stone plaque of the fourth stage of the Bharat Lanka housing project was unveiled today in a virtual event.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe pointed out that this project will enable the estate worker community in Sri Lanka to receive lands and residences of their own for the first time in their 200 years in Sri Lanka.
The India-funded housing project aims to construct 10,000 houses across 10 districts in the island. In its fourth stage, 1,300 houses will be built initially.
Speaking virtually, Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Santosh Jha reiterated India's commitment to support the Tamil community of Indian origin in Sri Lanka and added that the nation sees the Bharat Lanka housing project as the most important initiative to depict this unwavering support.
An event to mark the launch of the fourth stage of the Indian housing project Bharat Lanka, which envisages to build 10,000 houses for the plantation sector worker community, was held at the Presidential Secretariat today. President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Minister of Water Supply and Estate Infrastructure Development Jeevan Thondaman, and Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Santosh Jha virtually unveiled the foundation stone plaque for 1,300 houses across 45 plantation estates in 10 districts. The 10,000 houses to be built through the project, spanning 250 estates and 6 provinces, aims to support the most underprivileged sections of society. Speaking at the event, President Ranil Wickremesinghe pointed out that the estate workers of Sri Lanka, who have been making an immense contribution to Sri Lanka's economy for a period of 200 years, do not have their own lands and residences. He went on to stress that the community should be ensured their economic and social rights.
අද නිවාස 10,000ක් ඉදිකිරීමේ වැඩසටහනේ පළවෙනි අධීරය හැටියට නිවාස 1,300ක් ඉදිකිරීමේ වැඩ කටයුතු ආරම්භ කරා. මේ වැඩසටහන අපි ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නේ අපිට ඉන්දියාවේ නරේන්ද්‍ර මෝදි අගමැතිතුමාගේ ආණ්ඩුවෙන් ලැබුණු ආධාර නිසා. මේ රටේ කඳුකරේ ජීවත් වන දමිළ ජනතාව ලංකාවට පැමිණිලා අවුරුදු 200ක් ගත කරන අවස්ථාවේ තමයි මේ තෑග්ග මේ ජනතාවට ලබා දීලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ වගේම අපේ ආර්ථිකයට විශාලම සේවයක් කරපු ජනතාවන කඳුකරේ වතුකරේ සේවය කරන මේ ජනතාවගේ විශාලම අඩුපාඩුකම තිබුණේ තමන්ගේ නමට ඉඩමක් නැහැ, තමන්ගේ නමට ගෙයක් නැහැ. ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම කාලයක් යනකම් තමන්ට ඡන්දයක් තිබුණෙත් නැහැ. ඒ දේශපාලන අයිතිවාසිකම් සියල්ලම ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වුණාට ආර්ථික හා සමාජීය අයිතිවාසිකම් අපිට ලබලා දෙන්න තිබෙනවා. ඒ වැඩ කටයුත්ත තමයි අද අපි යෙදෙන්නේ. පළමුවෙන්ම නිවාස ඉදිකිරීම. නිවාස ඉදිකරන්නට අපිට ඉඩම් ලබා ගන්නට තියෙනවා. ඉඩම් ලබා ගැනීමට වතු සමාගම් සමග සාකච්ඡා කරන්නට තියෙනවා. සමාජ රජයේ ඉඩම් ලබා දෙන්න සිදු වෙනවා. නමුත් ඒ නිවාස හදන්නට වැඩසටහන් අපි ආරම්භ කරන්නට ඉන්නේ. විශේෂයෙන්ම තමන්ගේ නිවාස හදන්නට වුමනා ණය පහසුකමුත් සපයන්නට තියෙනවා. මේක ප්‍රශ්නයක්. තව කාරණයක් තමයි අධ්‍යාපනය. කඳුරාට ද්‍රවිඩ ජනතාවගේ අධ්‍යාපනය අනික් ප්‍රදේශවල අධ්‍යාපනයක සංසන්දනය කරොත් ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම අනික් ජනතාවගේ අධ්‍යාපනය මීට වඩා ඉදිරියෙන් තියෙනවා. අපි යෝජනා කරන්නේ හැම ප්‍රාදේශීය ලේකම් කාර්යාලයකම අපි පියවර ගන්න ඕමනයි මේ ද්‍රවිඩ ජනතාවගේ පාසලුත් ඒ වගේම අනික් පාසල එක සමාන තත්ත්වයක් ඇති කරන්න. ඒ වගේම අද කඳුකර ද්‍රවිඩ ජනතාවෙන් සියලු දෙනාම වතුකරයට ඇතුල් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අධ්‍යාපනය ලැබලා වෘත්තීය පුහුණුව ලැබලා විශේෂයෙන් වතුකරයෙන් පිට රැකියා ලබා ගන්නට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන සමහර විට රට යන්නේ. එහෙනම් අනික් ජන කොටස් වාගේම මේ ජන කොටසත් ඒ පහසුකම් ලබා දෙන්න තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම වතුකරයේ අනාගතයේ මොකක්ද පුළුවන්ද මේ සේවක පිරිස ඇටට ගෙනියන්න නැත්නම් මේ සඳහා ඉඩම් කොටසක් බාර දීලා වතුකරයේ තියෙන ගිවිසුම අනුව වතුකරයට එක සපයන්න. එහෙනම් විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ තුළු තේ වතු හිමියන්ට හා සමාන තත්ත්වයක් ගෙනෙන්න. ඉතින් මේ ප්‍රශ්න තමයි අද අපි සාකච්ඡා කරගෙන යන්නේ.
This project is one of the most important ones which India is implementing in Sri Lanka. It underscores the deep and abiding commitment of the people and government of India, and most notably of our Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, to continue our efforts to support the Indian origin Tamil community in Sri Lanka. We remain committed to building a deeper and stronger partnership between India and Sri Lanka based on shared security and prosperity, enhanced contacts and stronger connectivity.
The government of Sri Lanka has been providing us with state-of-the-art hospital in Dikkoya and the 10,000 houses. Prior to this, the 4,000 houses, scholarships, 63 smart classrooms and various other projects. And apart from that, a sum of rupees 3 billion was issued as a grant to the government of Sri Lanka in lieu of the 200th year of upcountry Tamils coming into this country.
U.S. Under-Secretary of State Elizabeth M. Allen, who is currently in Sri Lanka on an official visit, expressed her views on the global media space, emphasizing that when a government constricts the rights and freedoms of its citizens, the future and the development of the country will naturally suffer.
Against a backdrop where Sri Lanka recently enacted the online safety law in January, the U.S. Undersecretary added that the United States firmly stands for freedom of expression, actively promoting press freedom both online and offline, and ensuring the safety of journalists worldwide.
Addressing an event in Colombo today, U.S. Undersecretary Elizabeth Allen further said that overbroad limitations on expression hinders creativity, robbing society of potential advancements which fuel innovation and economic growth.
An event organized by the Press Club of Sri Lanka was held this morning under the theme Global Media Space and its Impact on Democracy. The event was graced by the U.S. Undersecretary of State Elizabeth M. Allen.
Freedom of the press and freedom of expression are not just fundamental human rights. They are also vital contributors to a country's development, growth, and future. The United States stands firmly for the freedom of expression, advocating for press freedom both online and offline, and ensuring the safety of journalists and media workers worldwide. Unfortunately, these essential freedoms are under threat globally, including concerns raised here in Sri Lanka. When governments intensify efforts to withhold information from the public by restricting internet access and censoring content online, we must speak up. Notably, when Sri Lanka's parliament passed the online safety bill in January, the United States voiced concerns over the potential effects on freedom of expression, innovation, and privacy, something we continue to do privately and publicly. We know it's common to hear arguments against unfettered freedom of expression. Critics claim that the media is biased, aiming to embarrass governments and undermine public trust. Others worry that without checks, freedom of expression might fuel the spread of misinformation, an issue on all of our minds. Some argue that an unchecked press can incite tension and compromise security. And there's concern that continuous reports on corruption, violence, and political strife can tarnish a nation's image, deterring investment and hampering development. But very clearly, I believe the media's bias should lean towards the public's interest, acting as a guardian to ensure that leaders fulfill their duties. This principle holds in Sri Lanka, in the United States, and globally. The challenge of negative press, often labeled as fake news or biased journalism, is not new. For generations, governments and the media have navigated a complex, sometimes adversarial relationship. This tension is actually a hallmark of democratic societies. It plays a crucial role in fostering transparency and encouraging effective governance. Overly broad and ambiguous limitations on expression can choke creativity, robbing society of potential advancements that fuel innovation and fuel economic growth. A climate of censorship not only stifles innovation, but also dampens critical community spirit to solve pressing challenges with novel solutions. And that spirit exists here in Sri Lanka. I've seen it in the last 3 days. We must continue to encourage it.
In an update on the developing row between members of certain health trade unions and the Ministry of Health over the payment of disturbance availability and transport or DAT allowance, Minister of Health Dr. Ramesh Patirana and representatives of the health sector this morning, the Health Services Trade Union Alliance said that a discussion to resolve the deadlock ended on a positive note. Further, during the meeting, both parties mutually agreed to appoint a special committee to look into the demands of the health trade unions, with the committee scheduled to meet tomorrow to resolve the issues pertaining to the disparities in their allowances.
Over the past few weeks, employees affiliated to 72 health sector trade unions engaged in nationwide strikes on multiple occasions, demanding an allowance equivalent to the DAT allowance of 35,000 rupees provided only to doctors. On the 15th of February, the strikes came to a halt after the Minister of Health agreed in writing to further discuss the matter with the unions. That meeting took place this morning at the Ministry of Health with the aim of reaching a solution to the trade unions' demands for a hike in allowances. Addressing the meeting, the Minister of Health, Dr. Ramesh Patirana, said that measures will be implemented to meet the demands of the health sector trade unions, following further exploration into the matter with a special committee comprising of Dr. Ramesh Patirana, the Secretary to the Ministry of Health, and representatives of the health trade unions being appointed to look into the demands of the health trade unions. This committee is scheduled to meet tomorrow to resolve the issues pertaining to the disparities in their allowances.
මේ සාකච්ඡාව දැන් විධිමත් සාකච්ඡාවක් බවට පරිවර්තනය කර ගනිමින් අවසාන චක්‍රලේඛය නිකුත් කර ගැනීමේ උවමනාව අපිට තියෙන්නේ. දැනට රැස් වෙච්ච නායකත්ව මණ්ඩලයේ විදිහට ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපි ධනාත්මක තැනක ඉන්නවා.
අද මේ සාකච්ඡාවේදී මෙතෙක් කෙදෙනිලධාරීන්ට රුපියල් 15ක දුන්න නිලඳුන් දීමනාව 30000 දක්වා වැඩි කළා. අනතුරු දීමනාව වැඩි කළා. ඉන්නට දීමනාව වැඩි කළා. ආචාර්ය මණ්ඩලයේ දීමනාව වැඩි කළා.
In the meantime, criticisms made by the Deputy Director of the Colombo National Hospital, Dr. Rukshan Bellana, over the strike carried out by the health professionals recently have received widespread backlash by many parties. As a result, the junior staff of the Colombo National Hospital demanded that Dr. Rukshan Bellana be removed from his position at the Colombo National Hospital.
මේ සම්බන්ධ ගැටලුව පිළිබඳව විමර්ශනය කරන්න කියලා මම සෞඛ්‍ය ලේකම්තුමාට දානලා තියෙනවා. තුමා මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් පරීක්ෂණයක් කරයි. ડોક્ટર රුක්ෂාන් වෙලන්දරු ප්‍රකාශය ඔබතුමාට අනුමත කරනවද? ඒ කියන්නේ කනිෂ්ඨ සේවකයෝ අවශ්‍ය නැහැ කියලා. කිසි ලෙසකින් අපි එවැනි ප්‍රකාශයක් අනුමත කරන්නේ නැහැ.
In other local stories we have for you tonight, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena says that despite the differences in the political opinions of the individuals therein, state sector employees must work towards goals directed towards the development of the nation. Now, speaking at a function to confer appointment letters to new recruits of the state sector, the Prime Minister said that the public service must take special care to avoid unfair decisions in the discharge of the public service. Also speaking at the event, Secretary to the Prime Minister Anura Dissanayake confirmed that the government is working on downsizing state sector from a 1.7 million workforce to around 1 million by 2030 by leaning more towards the use of information technology in state institutes.
Appointment letters were handed over to 250 new recruits who passed the limited competitive examination in the services of Sri Lanka's Administrative Service Grade 3, Sri Lanka's Scientific Service Grade 3, the Management Service Supra Grade and Sri Lanka's Government Librarian Service Grade 3 today at Temple Trees under the patronage of Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena.
රාජ්‍ය සේවයේ වගකීම සාමාන්‍ය පෞද්ගලික සමාගමකට වඩා බරපතලයි. රාජ්‍ය සේවයට ඇතුල් වන මොහොතේ සිට ඒ රාජ්‍ය සේවයේ දෙපාර්තමේන්තු හා ආයතන සහ මුළුමහත් රාජ්‍ය සේවයේ කටයුතු ලෙස ඔබ දෙහා රට බලනවා. රටේ සංවර්ධනයේ ඉලක්කයන් සපුරාලීමට අපට සිදුවෙන නාස්තිකාර වියදම් අඩු කර ගැනීමට අපට තීරණ ගැනීමේදී සිදුවෙන යම් යම් අසාධාරණකම් දැක එවැනි තීරණ ගැනීමෙන් වැළකීම විශේෂයෙන් සලකා බලන ලෙස ඒ සඳහා කැපවන ලෙස මේ අවස්ථාවේ අප රජය වෙනුවෙන් ඔබට ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න කැමතියි. අපි රාජ්‍ය සේවයට ඇති වෙනකොට පක්ෂ හිතවත්කම් තියෙන්න පුළුවන් ඒවා තියාගන්න. නමුත් රාජ්‍ය සේවයේ කාර්යය රටේ යහපත පිණිස අරගන්න මේ දුෂ්කර කාල පරිච්ඡේදයෙන් අපි එළියට එන වෙලාවේ ඒ සාර්ථකව ඉදිරියට ගමන් කරවන්න ඔබ සැමගේම සහාය ලබා දෙන්න.
අපි කවුරුත් දන්නවා අපේ රාජ්‍ය සේවයේ ආර්ථිකයට බරක් වෙන තරමටම විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් ලක්ෂ 17ක් වූ රාජ්‍ය සේවයේ අපි ක්‍රමිකව ලක්ෂ 10 දක්වා 2030 වෙන විතර අපි කළමනාකරණය කරගත යුතුයි. එහෙමනම් අපි අලුතෙන් අපේ කළමනාකරණ වේදී තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණය ඔස්සේ කරන්න පුළුවන්.
The Director General of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, Dr. Koo Dong-yu, paid a courtesy visit to President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Presidential Secretariat this afternoon, where he congratulated the President for the developments made and the reforms agenda undertaken in navigating Sri Lanka through the recent economic crisis and the country's subsequent reform program. The Director General also assured the food and agriculture organizations unwavering support to both the government and the people of Sri Lanka during these critical times. President Wickremesinghe in turn provided an overview of the progress made in the country's ongoing recovery efforts. He also highlighted the importance of introducing an agriculture modernization project to enhance the sector's productivity and sustainability and sought the FAO's collaboration and assistance in implementing this initiative.
Well, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs, Donald Lu, announced that the United States government will donate a Beechcraft King aircraft to Sri Lanka this year to patrol its coastal waters in a bid to protect the country's sovereignty. Speaking at the U.S. Institute of Peace on Indo-Pacific Strategy, Lu highlighted that part of what Sri Lanka needs is support to protect its sovereignty. He added that the U.S. will support the country's efforts through the donation of patrol boats to Sri Lanka's Navy. Further addressing the nation's economy, he made sure to reiterate that Sri Lanka's journey towards economic recovery was with the aid of several nations, including the U.S.
Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin contacted Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday and urged him to intervene on behalf of the Tamil Nadu fishermen who have been arrested by the Sri Lanka Navy to ensure their release and repatriation. In a next message, the Chief Minister stated that the continued detention of Tamil Nadu fishermen by the Sri Lanka Navy is deeply distressing and a major matter of concern. He highlighted that there has been a steep increase in the number of arrests of Tamil Nadu fishermen over the past 2 days, and that these arrested fishermen have been treated as habitual offenders, which has led to their prolonged detention. He has also said that the livelihoods of the fishermen have been severely threatened due to these frequent arrests. The Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu has also said that the Sri Lankan Navy has impounded several costly mechanized boats and that these impounded boats have been nationalized by the Sri Lankan government.
More local stories. The Colombo District Court issued an order today preventing the Samagi Jana Balawegaya from suspending Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca's party membership and his dismissal from positions held within the party. Accordingly, the injunction, effective for a period of 14 days, prevents the political party from ousting Field Marshal Fonseca from the SJB, taking disciplinary action against him and removing him from post in the party. With that, let's take a look at what happened in the world of politics today.
සදාචාරයක් තිබුණාවත් හමුදාපති කෙනෙක් ෆීල්ඩ් මාෂල් පක්ෂ දෙවෙනියා මාත් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරන අර පුද්ගලයා ගන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා මම ඉස්සෙල්ලා සිද්ධියට විරුද්ධතාවය පළ කරා පක්ෂ නායකයාට කතා කරලා පක්ෂ ලේකම්ට කතා කරලා විරුද්ධතාවය පළ කරා අවශ්‍ය නිසි පියවර ගන්නුන්නේ නැහැ මේවා මාධ්‍යය යන්න පටන් ගත්ත නිසා මාත් මාධ්‍යයට ප්‍රකාශනකුත් කරා කිසිම ආකාරයකින් තීරණයක් කරගෙන නැහැ පක්ෂය අතාරින්න පාක්ෂිකව අතාරින්න
මහා සමාජවාදී විප්ලවකාරයෝ තමන්ගේ දුව දරුවව යවන්නේ රජයේ පාසලට නෙවෙයි පෞද්ගලික පාසලට මහලොකුට කියාගන්නෝ ජනතාවාදී ජනහිතකාමී වමේ නායකයෝ කියලා වාමාංශිකයි කියලා තමන් රටට වාමාංශික වුණාට තමන්ගේ පවුලටත් දූ දරුවන්ටත් වාමාංශික නැහැ ධනවාදී
ගෙදර වෙලා බලමින් බලිතොවිල් කරමින් බෝධි පූජා තියමින් කිරියම්මාගේ දාණය දෙමින් හෙනවුරා පරද්දන්න හදනවා ඡන්ද දිනේ හෙනවුරා මහපුටුවට ගේනවා ගෙනාවේ නැත්නම් ඒ නිසා අපිට මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ අපි කොච්චර වෙලාපත බැලුවත් කොච්චර බෝධි පූජා තිබ්බත් කොච්චර බාරහාර වුණත් පඳුරු ගැට ගැහුවත් අපි අවශ්‍ය වැඩේ කරලා නැහැ දැන් මේ තොවිල හරියට කපන්න ඕන සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාසතුමාට සහයෝගය දෙනවා මේ නැටි ඒ විදිහේ බොහොම ප්‍රබල ජනමතයක් අද කරණයකමින් පවතිනවා එතකොට ඒ සඳහා තමයි අපේ පූර්ණ ශක්තිය යොදවන්නට අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ
Tamil Nadu police yesterday claimed that 3 suspects were arrested with over 364 kilograms of cannabis meant to be smuggled into Sri Lanka. The suspects had been planning to smuggle the narcotics into Sri Lanka through sea while using a fiberglass boat, which was also subsequently seized. With that development from neighbouring India, let's take a look at other news across Sri Lanka in brief.
In Mayava, a mother and her 2 children aged 7 and 9 lost their lives following a tragic train accident at a railway crossing which occurred at around 3:50 p.m. this afternoon. The 36-year-old mother had been taking her children home on a motorcycle after a tuition class when this unfortunate incident claimed the 3 lives. The residents of the area raised concerns over a non-functional railway gate which always remains open even at times when trains pass through the railway crossing. A relative of notorious drug trafficker under the alias Kudu Salindu was apprehended with 10 grams and 571 milligrams of heroin in possession. The arrest was made in Panadura yesterday. She was arrested after suspicion upon her inability to explain how she had acquired a sum of 247,450 rupees. In Venapur, meanwhile, a married couple who were transporting a consignment of 21 grams and 200 milligrams of heroin in a 3-wheeler was arrested by the Venapur police yesterday. The police revealed that the duo attempted to transport the narcotics by hiding the consignment under the driver's seat of the 3-wheeler. Investigations into the incident revealed that the 2 suspects had bought 1 gram of heroin at 30,000 rupees and then sold it off in packets.
Welcome back everyone to Business News Now. Sri Lanka's first metropolitan duty-free store is slated to be opened in April of this year at the Colombo port city.
Well, this development was highlighted by the Belt and Road Initiative Sri Lanka, an international development organization, via an X message. In October of 2023, the Sri Lankan government gazetted the requirements that needed to be met in order to conduct duty-free retail business operations for duty-free shopping mall operations at the Colombo port city.
Now, according to the relevant gazette published by President Ranil Wickremesinghe in his capacity as the Minister of Investment Promotion, An investment of a minimum of $5 million is required to run a duty-free retail business with international level experience in duty-free trade operations. Now, this threshold is raised to at least $7 million to run a duty-free shopping mall as well. Now, in May of 2023, Singapore owned One World Duty-Free, and the Colombo Port City signed 2 agreements to operate Sri Lanka's first metropolitan duty-free store. Let's take you to the stock market now. The Colombo Stock Exchange closed higher today, aided by gains in industrial and financial stocks. The all-share price index rose 0.54% to 10,643.05 points, extending its winning streak to 3 consecutive sessions, while the S&P SL20 closed 0.62% higher to end at 3,067.40 points. Sri Lanka Holdings and LLC Finance were the top gainers on the CSE all-share, rising 2.97% and 2.44 respectively. Trading volumes on the CSE all-share index rose to 991.6 million shares from 41.2 million shares in the previous session. Equity market turnover fell to 719 million rupees from 1.37 billion rupees in the previous session. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to the market turnover today, while the banking sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 142.1 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 606.9 million rupees.
And senior analyst from Capital Alliance, Amrit Fernando, joins us now with a few thoughts to round off our Markets in View segment.
In terms of the domestic equity market, we saw the indexes remain broadly flat week over week, with the ASPI rising 19 points to 10,586, while the S&P SL20 rose 22 points to 3,048. In terms of market turnover, last week was down 71% to 4.3 billion compared to the previous week due to 11 billion rupee JKH crossing. The equity market ended last week positively, and we expect this trend to continue this week as interest rates for government securities fall and equities become a more attractive investment option. At last week's Treasury bill and bond auctions, we saw interest rates decline significantly across the board. The 3 and 6 month Treasury bills fell to single-digit levels, while the 12-month bill settled at 10.02%. Year to date, the 3, 6 and 12-month Treasury bills fell by 472, 430 and 291 basis points, while the 2026 and 2028 Treasury bonds noted a 227 and 176 basis points reduction. Both auctions last week were fully subscribed, and the government was able to raise 190 billion rupees. This week, the government will try and raise 120 billion rupees through Treasury bills. And in terms of global markets, last week the US indexes such as the Nasdaq, Dow Jones and S&P 500 recorded weekly declines, while crude oil prices settled higher on geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, with Brent oil rising to over $83 per barrel.
When in the second T20 between Sri Lanka and Afghanistan in Dambulla, Sri Lanka scored 187 for 6 in 20 overs. We'll bring you the very latest on our next bulletin coming up next. I'm Indivari Amwatha.
Mahesh Johnny, thank you very much for joining us. Have a good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.